Adaptability at work. The World Economic Forum estimates that 65% of jobs that currently exist will no longer exist by the time current primary school children enter the workforce. Yikes. Let's talk about how to deal with this. Hi, I'm Carol Mould. For more advice and information on how to realize your potential and live your best life, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you'll be notified when I post new videos every Tuesday. As an organizational psychologist and change management trainer, I've had some experience dealing with the need to change and adapt to things at work, and I've put some ideas together in this video to help out. Please watch till the end. So how do we measure adaptability? How do we know what our starting point is? I think a lot of us are finding out the hard way, having to adapt a lot during this pandemic. But let's have a look at a couple of ideas that can help. The first way of measuring adaptability that I'd like to talk about comes from a really good TED talk on the subject, and I'll put the link of the talk in the description below. And in this, Natalie Fratto, who's a venture investor, gave a talk on the subject, speaking about how she identifies adaptability in startup companies looking for investment. The first thing that Natalie talks about is that you've probably been asked questions in interviews starting with, "Tell me about a time when." This is a well-known type of interview question looking for what you've done in the past as a predictor of future behavior. Instead, Natalie asks what-if questions, such as, "Tell me what you would do if no one could get to your store to buy your products." The example Natalie uses in her talk is that of a heat wave preventing people from going to the shops, but not too far off from what we're having now. And I think a lot of companies are having to deal with this change that might have come up very unexpectedly from the pandemic. The second thing that Natalie talks about is active unlearning. She suggests having a beginner's mindset when things change, which is about challenging old ways of thinking and being open to new ideas for dealing and adapting to changes. The third thing that Natalie encouraged us to do is to prioritize exploration over exploitation. She uses a now famous example of blockbusters versus Netflix, where blockbusters use more of an exploitation mindset to exploit their existing form of business, whereas Netflix focus on exploration and looking at new opportunities. And as they say, the rest is history. Look how big Netflix is now. Another way of assessing our adaptability is to do assessments such as the Gallup Strengthsfinder. In the Gallup Strengthsfinder, one of the 34 strengths measured is adaptability. I'll put a link to the Strengthsfinder book in the description below, and with each purchase of a book, you get a code which allows you to go online and do your own assessment. A measure for adaptability is the adaptability quotient, which measures the ability to adapt and thrive in a fast-changing environment. Fast Company magazine describes adaptability quotient as the future of work, and Harvard Business Review talks about it as being the new competitive advantage. The good news is that scientists agree that AQ is not fixed, it can be developed. AQ is becoming as important as IQ and EQ when it comes to hiring. In simplistic definitions, IQ measures your overall intelligence. There are many different ways to measure IQ, but every method aims to determine something about your intellect. Measures include crystallized intelligence, which refers to the ability to use knowledge acquired through past learning or experience, and fluid intelligence, which refers to the ability to reason and solve problems in unique and novel situations. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your emotions, understand what they're telling you, and realize how your emotions affect people around you. It also involves your perception of others. When you empathize with them and understand how they feel from their perspective, this allows you to manage relationships more effectively. Each is an important aspect and can be valuable to any professional in any industry. But of these three, perhaps the most important is AQ, as it measures your capacity to continue growing and making changes to become more valuable to your company and your team. So while intelligence and empathy are extremely valuable, the ability to roll with the punches and make internal changes to fit the circumstances can make you valuable no matter where you are. So let's think now about how can we develop our adaptability. Otto Scharmer from MIT has come up with a framework that can help us to work through this. In his framework, Otto Scharmer talks about different levels of listening. He talks about level 1 listening, which he refers to as downloading, where we're simply taking in sound waves and not really doing that much with the information. Really, all we do is just confirm things that we already know, and we ignore anything that disconfirms our current beliefs. So the first step is to keep an open mind, so you can see the world with fresh eyes and remain open to possibilities. The type of listening we'd use here, Otto refers to as factual listening, where we're looking at new facts. The next level of listening he calls empathic listening, and this is in the middle box here, where we keep an open heart and try and see a situation through another person's eyes and empathize with their point of view. The third step is perhaps the hardest one, and Otto talks of the type of listening we would need here as being generative listening, where we're actually connecting with emerging future possibilities as they emerge, and this is where adaptability is really at its key. Here are some considerations to bear in mind when we're trying to develop our adaptability. Firstly, consider if you're using a mental script to guide your behavior. So the way our brains work is that it's very useful once we've learned behavior, like driving a car or tying our shoes, that we just remember those things without really putting any effort into them in future. Another one is ducking if somebody throws a ball at your head. This is automated and it's efficient, but it can keep us stuck in old ways of doing things. So if you find yourself shooting down an idea as soon as you think of it, question whether there's a mental script at work and if you should challenge the thinking. Secondly, we should distinguish between observation and inference and between facts and conjecture. So observation and facts are things that are objective, but as soon as we start with inference and conjecture, that is where subjectivity comes into play, and where we are often guided by mental scripts, and again should question that. Thirdly, we should know when to not go by the book and when to be pragmatic. Think about, is there flexibility? Are we doing this because that's the way we've always done it and that's what the book says we should do? Or is this the best approach for the situation at hand? The fourth consideration here is to think about, if you were to leave your job and a successor came in, what changes would they make to improve things? And try and look at your situation with fresh eyes and think, what changes could you make while you are still in this job? LinkedIn commissioned a global study to be done by PwC looking at adapting to survive. And here's some of the recommendations coming from that study. First of all, to take a longer term view, so to look for trends and see which direction the future is going into, and future-proof ourselves, position ourselves for the future. Secondly, to connect, build, and maintain a professional network, and LinkedIn is an obvious place to do this. We need to anticipate the skills need, both hard skills and soft skills, and make sure that we're keeping on top of developing and gaining new skills. We should be bold, resilient, open to change, curious about the future, and also proactive. They also suggest going beyond borders. Take the scenic route. People that have worked in different countries and been exposed to several cultures expand their mind and expand their borders, and this is something to be recommended. And lastly, invest in training. And individuals should really take ownership of their training. It's wonderful if your organization offers training, but don't depend on your organization for this. Invest in your own training and keep up to date on skills. Here's some further advice for individuals wanting to grow their adaptability. Make decisions about which roles to pursue in business, in work, perhaps starting your own business, based on how much you can learn. Something that we saw in the TED Talk that I referred to earlier, adapt a beginner's mindset when facing change, be prepared to unlearn the old and learn the new. It's a very good idea to find a coach or mentor to help anticipate and develop new skills and competencies over time. Use them as a sounding board and see what skills are going to best suit you in the future. And then embrace the 5-hour rule. The most adaptable and successful people devote 5 hours per week to reading and learning. And among that group are people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. They really do thrive on learning. I'd like to encourage all of you to do the same thing. Some resources that you can use to help you for the 5-hour rule is Blinkist. It's a website where they've summarized a lot of books. You can listen to it in audio or you can read the summaries. And this is something I find very valuable if you just want to get the gist of a book. But what I also enjoy is Audible. And so if you want to listen to the whole book, then you can purchase those on Audible. I've put links to both of those services in the description below. And then 2 books that I really recommend: Deep Work by Cal Newport and Mindset. There is an updated edition. This is Carol Dweck's book on the growth mindset, changing the way you think to fulfill your potential. I put links to those 2 books down below as well, and I truly recommend and think that those are wonderful books. If I just say the quote here from Alvin Toffler: "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So I hope that you found the ideas interesting and valuable in this video. If you'd like to hear more ideas from me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I post a new video, which is every Tuesday. And I really look forward to seeing your notes in the discussion below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.